Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 67 of Diamond Cast.
Woo. 67. Wow, fantastic.
Why is that important? Because people will go like this.
I don't know. That's a silly thing.
I think it's an older trend now, isn't it? People have moved on.
Yeah,
but why do you like 67, Adam?
Oh, because it's the name of a super villain, like what do you call him? AI baddie in Virtuosity.
Which is a movie with Russell Crowe and Denzel Washington, and it's awesome if you haven't seen it.
Yeah, it's
1995.
By the same guy that did The Lawnmower Man. That's if you like The Lawnmower Man. Yeah.
Oh wow! So was it quite prescient of later, like modern day AI concepts back in '95?
It's like an evil AI that like escapes into the real world kind of thing.
Well, it's an evil AI that like he lives in. He's created, but with all the knowledge of all the mass murderers in the world, right? He's got all the mind of the mass murderers. So he's supposed to be the most evil like thing that we could conceive of, and he manages to like trick humans into getting him out into a human body, and then he can go around and cause chaos in the world.
That's a good concept. Yeah, and this is quite an old film, 95.
Yeah.
Like religious allegories and antichrist kind of stuff in it. All the kind of things I like.
What's it called?
Virtuosity.
Virtuosity. Okay. And all right, one to look out for.
Yeah, add it to the list.
It's really good. It's so 1995. Like if you watch the intro's like 3 minutes of just credits on a blur screen, and then it's everything about a 1995 sci-fi that you could imagine would be perfect. Just great.
Yeah. Brilliant.
And it's got action in it and stuff. Denzel Washington's obviously like hero kind of action,
my t-shirt
star. So go and get it. You got to.
I like how we were able to have an entire conversation based on the number 67. That's pretty good. That's pretty good.
It means something different to us because it got co-opted by all the teenagers who kept shouting 67, and then we didn't know that. We just watched a South Park episode where they were saying it, and we were like, they know about the evil AI. They know about 6.7. So, and maybe it's all connected because 67 or 6.7 is rounding up of 6.66 recurring, which is the number of the beast.
Yes.
And you said, Ben, it was the devil's what?
Well, no, the neighbour of the beast.
The neighbour of the beast. Okay, and where does his hoof come into it?
That's the devil's flaming hoof. But nice callback to last time. I suppose technically the neighbour of the beast would be 668 because 667 would be opposite on the other side of the road.
Oh yeah, it's a cul-de-sac.
Yeah, so
your neighbour, just not next door.
Yeah,
unless he's in a cul-de-sac.
Yeah, I can't think that neighbour means next door, but I've never interrogated that notion before. I suppose your neighbours are the houses adjacent to you.
Everyone who lives in your street, I thought. So your neighbours across the road and your next door neighbours. They get the title next door neighbours because they're next door. But like we have neighbours and we live in a block of flats, right? And anyone who lives in this block of flats is a neighbour.
Mm. Also, but
not just the next door.
There are numbers for every flat, so it makes it more confusing.
Yeah, and in Neighbours, the television show, was it all in Ramsey Street, or were the neighbours in other streets as well?
No, they were all in Ramsey Street, I think, which is exactly why the definition of neighbours is what Neighbours says. I think that we should go with that. That's the
okay, because there were like six or seven houses or families in Ramsey Street. 6.7 houses in 6.7 houses in Ramsey Street. Oh, it's a conspiracy.
It's like a true crime story.
Yeah, true. We keep coming back to the number 6.7. Yeah. Yes, so they were all neighbours in Ramsey Street. Yes, they were.
Okay. And here's one. Harley's back again this week.
Harley, just before we turned the recording on, she had her face right up against the camera, so you could just see white fluff. She might come back. No, she's coming. She's like, what's going on?
Right, cool. Let's do some episodes.
Harley's co-hosting. Yeah. So today's episode. Thank you for joining us. I've enjoyed the last few episodes. I think the last few episodes have been really like thought-provoking and a bit philosophical, bit of a deep chat. Got some chats going in the comments, which has been great.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been some good subjects. You've done some great research on the subjects there, Nat, of coming up with some interesting and thought-provoking concepts that we could discuss. So well done. Well done you.
I think well done you for discussing them in such a thought-provoking way. You could have just looked at it and gone, nah, it's not for me. Cool. So this week we thought we're going to talk about suffering and the myth of the tortured artist. How many of you have heard of the concept of the tortured artist, and what does that mean?
Yeah, I mean, it's a classic concept, isn't it? I mean, I've got my notes here. I've got my notes.
Well, what does it mean? What is the tortured artist? Why is it a myth? Why is it some sort of mystical, magical, kind of desirable thing to be or to consider oneself?
I guess it's the idea that if you've got pain, you've got depth, and you've got something to say. Whereas if you don't, then your stability and the mundanity, is that a real word? Mundaneness?
Mundanity.
That you don't have anything to say. That's the basic idea. And that if you want to create something. Yeah, that's the myth. And if you want to create something, you must have suffered greatly. Your life must be full of chaos and woe in order to be a creative. I think that's the idea of the myth, isn't it?
Is that kind of sad though?
It's not creating the art, which is the torture.
Everyone the art comes from feeling something intensely. Surely not just feeling pain, but also love, and it doesn't have to be. Does it have to be like peaks and troughs that are really big and really low?
You're really happy when you're tortured, are you?
Are you tortured constantly all the time, or do you experience life in peaks and troughs of extreme ecstasy and extreme depression, and that's what creates the torture, or are you just tortured all the time?
You're tortured because you're not recognising your time.
Well, maybe if you were tortured all the time, you wouldn't recognise that you were tortured all the time because it was your norm. So maybe you need those extremes, as you said, Nat, and maybe there's a certain neurodiversity that artists maybe have, that kind of extreme of I'm really down, I'm really high, that sometimes can be part of an artist's kind of characteristic. But yeah, that idea that if you haven't suffered, then you've got nothing to say. And I do actually remember thinking this a while back when I used to drink a lot. There was a singer in a band, and he was completely teetotal. And I remember thinking, he must have nothing to write about because he doesn't have
he doesn't drink.
He doesn't drink, and therefore drinking heavily and the adventures and the misery and the suffering and the kind of chaos that comes with that was, to me, idiosyncratic of, therefore you have something to write about. What does this guy have to write about? He has a cup of tea and then goes home on a Saturday and does a jigsaw puzzle. But I recognise now that was a very blinkered vision, and that when I was then horrifically hungover and full of anxiety, the last thing I wanted to do was set up Pro Tools and start writing a song. So
what about jigsaw puzzles?
No, couldn't do a jigsaw puzzle either. But I do genuinely remember thinking, what does he write about? So yeah, again, it's a bit of a myth there that I thought I needed the chaos that came with an addiction in order to be able to be an authentic bringer of creativity in some way.
Isn't the torture really why you have the addiction, not the addiction itself and the ups and downs of the chemical imbalances that brings? Well, because the reason that a lot of people suffer with things like addiction, where they can't regulate how much of a hedonistic thing that they do, is because of something else that has caused them to, in their life, that could have been traumatic or could have been, a way that they've experienced the world that's different to others. So
yeah, absolutely, and
therefore torture could exist.
Yeah, so maybe it was an indication. So in the instance that of my example was that the torture was already there, and the addiction was a way of hiding from it or escaping from it, temporarily through the use of an external substance. So maybe this guy who did the jigsaw puzzles was just as tortured as I was, but he was able to just
I can imagine you'd be tortured if you made jigsaw puzzles all the time. Especially one with all the beans. Baked beans, that's something annoying.
The one where it's got like two different sides of the same puzzle or whatever. Yeah. I would definitely start drinking a lot if I had to do this.
It makes it harder though. You can't see then.
Well,
yeah, that's true.
Once again, a badly chosen metaphor of mine has led us down a different alleyway. The jigsaw puzzle. It's a new thing. But yeah, maybe this because he was a great songwriter and a musician.
What did he write about? What was his like bread and butter?
So his songs were about things to do with relationships, but things to do with sort of self-empowerment. And I guess because he had that clarity, he was able to consistently be able to write and produce and create really good work. Just because he wasn't like as I was having these sort of chaotic experiences didn't mean that his voice was any less valid. In many ways, it possibly more valid because he was able to regulate himself and write from a place of structure and stability. But it sort of reminded me of that idea, the concept of you must suffer to create. Do you remember the whole Richie James thing from the Manic Street Preachers about how he carved the words "for real" into his arm because I think a journalist said, "Are you guys for real?" And that's sort of a very literal example of, look, here's me suffering. This proves it. This proves that I am real.
What was his attitude then? Was it like just basic frustration with journalists who ask vapid questions?
I mean, it might have been, and it might have been an ironic backlash against the concept of the journalist saying, "Are you real?" Like, what does that even mean? What do you think?
I don't know. Wait a minute, I just have to go and deal with the cat. 1 second.
What are you doing with? I keep hearing her purring. I keep hearing her purring, and I think it's really cute because she's joining in. Hi.
I'm back.
Okay. So yeah, we were just talking about
Richey Edwards and the arm carving.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he was definitely a tortured artist because he, disappeared. So.
Well, do we ever know what his torture came from? Like, because he wrote about a lot of things in a very deep and poetic manner.
Yeah, I mean, the lyrics are pretty anguished throughout.
I think his way of seeing the world and what's going on in the world was almost nihilistic, almost like, there's no point in trying to do anything to improve it because humanity will always be, human nature will always be the way it is. What do you guys think?
Yes. Yeah, I think that's a good observation. I mean, there's another level of suffering there or friction there, which was historically he wasn't a very good guitar player. So his contribution was the lyrics and the image of the band. And I wonder how that affected him, that he was essentially not really contributing musically, but in the position where he was ostentatiously saying, I'm a guitarist in the band, but quietly dealing with the guilt and the shame of, I'm not really good enough to play in this band.
Yeah, they turned him down sometimes.
Right, on stage, like literally turned him down. But because his...
turned his amps down.
Yeah. But because his aesthetic was so good and his lyrics were so good and he was kind of the soul of the band's concept, he was integral to it.
Well, yeah, he made that band, right? Because
I wonder,
the message and the lyrics and the way that people perceive them, and you align yourself with what they're saying and their messages, and it makes you think about things. So, of course, I mean, if he hadn't written any of the lyrics, then they wouldn't have had that unique USP, right? Did he write them? Oh, sorry, I thought Richie wrote them.
No, okay. I mean, the early stuff, Richie was much more of the main lyricist.
Okay.
Well, obviously, it's after he disappears. But I mean, they did collaborate.
Yeah, no, well, that's true, actually. They've, like, Nicky writes... Does they write them together now? Or, like...
No. Well, not sure. I think they still... Nicky writes all the lyrics and James and Sean do the music.
Okay.
Mainly James.
Yeah, and Nicky Wire's lyrics are exceptional as well. They don't have quite the same quality, I think, that... the quality is not the right... texture, let's say, that Richie's had. But yeah, maybe that was part of the anguish for him, was that he could never really feel proudly part of the band. He was almost like a voice behind the band, but he couldn't necessarily feel proud about standing on the stage and playing. Yeah. So I imagine that channeled itself into some of his frustrations as well. Yeah. I mean, Kurt's another interesting one, Kurt Cobain, in terms of did his suffering get to the point where he was unable to carry on in life because of the success of the band and how perhaps it steered away from what his original vision of the band had been.
Try to get your tinfoil hat on, Natalie.
It doesn't fit over my headphones, but...
I won't go into this one about...
What, because you think Kurt Cobain didn't kill himself?
Yeah. I won't go on.
I liked how quickly you were able to access that hat. It's ready at all times.
Oh, yeah. Oh, it is.
It's good.
I went to a shop the other day and I started talking about films because it's a shop based on film memorabilia. And I said about one of our series about One Battle After Another. I said to them, I was looking for hats, right? And I went, oh, and they looked at me like I was crazy. And I said, you don't have any tinfoil ones of these, do you?
Yes. Well, we got them. Anyway, yeah.
So we don't know what happened or what the reason for people unaliving themselves are really deeply. Is it to do with creative torture or the industry, corrupting their beautiful intent, or any of those things, or if it's something completely personal that we'd never be aware of. Or, well, yes, I mean, you could, that's quite a thing as well. I mean, back with the tinfoil hat, a lot of people who are recklessly behaving in public are quite good candidates for, if they don't want them around anymore saying controversial things. Oh, he accidentally overdosed or he unalived himself. So, yeah, there could be a conspiracy around those things. But in more concrete things that we can speculate on, maybe, so... You definitely have kind of a sense, a quality, and like you said, Ben, a texture of someone who's got a kind of tortured or nihilistic or a certain view of the world, whether or not how they end up, but you can get the view of their worldview out by listening to their music and lyrics. So in that sense, do you have to have that?
Like Van Gogh or Beethoven, when we're discussing this, they were the people that came to mind for me straight away.
Why Beethoven? We know Van Gogh wasn't appreciated in his time and he cut his own ear off, right?
Well, it was, so he was not stable in his real life, so I guess he was tortured by that. I think, Beethoven was a massive alcoholic and he went deaf as well. So.
Oh, we'll see. Well, so he still created all the music.
He was recognised in his day, but then,
I need to watch the movie.
Yeah, you should watch the movie with Gary Oldman. It's really good.
I think the key thing is that the suffering and the emotion is where the spark of the art should come from. But in order to actually get it out there and create it, well, not even get it out there, but actually create it, there has to be a level of structure within your life. There has to be a groundedness. There has to be some level of discipline. In order to, for us, for Diamond Black to make a song, it doesn't just happen. It's a great deal of work and effort and learning about your own ability as a musician, about how to record the stuff, how to produce it, how to release it. And so therefore...
That's the torturous bit.
Yeah, that's the torture.
The industry.
Therefore, if you were still trying to do all of that stuff in this fugue of emotional despair and desperation, you wouldn't really be able to. So you have to kind of leave it at the door a bit and then build things in a grounded and mediated way in order to actually craft something. But you can start the fire with the spark of emotion, but in order to keep it burning and keep it going, it needs to have structure, and you actually be able to create something tangible with it, which means some level of restraint, some level of editing it down, some level of going, okay, this works, that doesn't. And maybe that's...
if you were like a tortured artist, but you were rubbish.
What, so you couldn't actually...
Yeah, I think it's more frustrating.
Well, you need to have some semblance of self-confidence in order to be able to actually make something that doesn't exist in the world exist, right? Because you need to, even if you are still down in the dumps and you feel a bit like, oh, I'm not good enough or whatever, but you still believe in yourself enough to create this thing, even if just because you wanted it to exist, even if you thought no one was going to see it. Sure. So you still kind of had that. And then when you feel a bit better in life in the future, feel a bit more confident, then you go, oh, actually, it's not that bad. I can actually share it with people. Or you can tap into a feeling that you had. So you could be a person that feels deeply rather than tortured, someone who feels deeply emotions, especially interconnected with other people. And those people, I think that's more the right description of for a tortured artist, is literally just a person who can have a lot of empathy and can feel a lot with, connect a lot with people's consciousnesses, like through theirs together. Because then what you do is you can when it sucks, because when something bad happens, when you lose someone, it's like really, really bad, right? But then also when you're with people in solidarity and together about, like, at a festival or whatever, you're like flying on top of the world, and it's the best feeling ever. But then when you're in flow state, in focus, you can tap into both of those things and use them and hone them, because you remember what that feeling was like, because it affected you so much. So it does suck having some of the sad stuff, but it also is really helpful it's like the gasoline for the fire of that you mentioned.
Well, yeah, it's a bit like when we were talking about timeless songs last week, and we kind of hit on the line, it's not about this is what I feel like, it's this is what it feels like. And that idea of being able to emote something that is collectively recognizable, as you just said, Nat, is, I think, where you go from it being the tortured self-indulgent that never goes anywhere to the actual, this is what it feels like, and I want to therefore create something to which people can connect. And that takes structure and discipline and having a certain level of groundedness in order to sit down and go, right, this is my idea, this is my emotion, but I need to pick up the guitar or the piano and open the session and record it and set the right channel settings and everything. There needs to be a level of structure and clarity there as well.
I think the tortured artist stereotype quite prevalent in comedians. Like, if we think of like comedy as the art form, you get a lot of, like, it's almost stereotype, like really depressed comedian, or like in real life but super funny on stage. No, don't get your tinfoil hat out for this one. I'm talking about Robin Williams, but like that's quite a known stereotype, and I wonder if that's because comedians have got a very good insight onto the truth of things, and not like in a conspiracy way, but I mean, like, they can cut through.
Well, again, they have incredible gift and talent for empathy and emotion, because the thing that makes people, if you're a funny comedian, you make people laugh because you can tap into this really small little nuance of what it is to be human and use it in a way that brings joy to people, right? And to do that's two really hard things to do, right? Because like to make a song, or you have to have musical skill, but to come up with a poem, you don't have musical skill, but you have to kind of understand words a little bit. But you can still articulate a feeling, I guess, without much extra skill on top of that. Whereas comedy and music, you can articulate the feeling, and then you have to go. Comedy, you have to go like 2 steps further and think, how's someone else going to laugh at that? And music, you have to technically take that feeling into something that someone can feel through the sound, which is like engineering sound, which is like a crazy thing to do on top of that, for me anyway.
Yeah, with comedians, are they often talking about kind of miserable things that have happened to them, rather than, hey, this is the great thing that happened to me today? That's not funny, is it? It's talking about the tribulations that they've had in a way that we can also connect with those tribulations. So it's a bit like songwriting in a way, or writing something emotionally.
You have to be very self-analytical, or like
and observant to other. Observant. Yeah, you have to just watch other people and see and notice patterns. You have to be really good at pattern recognition.
Is that right? Music.
You think these things are creative, but actually, when you think of creativity and creative tasks or creative jobs, you think, oh, it's just kind of, being free and expressing myself, but it's not. It's actually really, really pattern recognition analytical, because you have to analyze people and the human condition.
Yeah, absolutely. And when Yanni, the producer, and I were working on the songs for the album, the initial stage of what's the song idea, we'd never just go, hey, have you got an idea? We would sit down and go, okay, look, you've got a bit of an idea here, but before we do anything about the music and start recording or anything, what's the song about? Let's talk about where's the story of the song? What is the world? Who are the characters? And it doesn't have to be explicitly written as a script, but it's like, where are we? What's happening? And that kind of idea of structure and of concept before you start channeling the emotion was essential for us to go, great, now we know where we are. We're in this particular environment. Now we can start emoting and we can start creating. And that was a good example, I think, of how having structure was important, to sort of step back and go, right, before we get too involved in the emotional side of it, let's create a framework within that keeps us focused.
Can I put you on the spot and ask for an example of a
So, would you want to?
We'll do a little bit of a teaser for someone.
So, the song "Where the Night Crawls." Yes,
exclusive.
Sort of. It's a real exposition about that, because I was able to talk to Yanni directly about this. The story of this song happened very specifically in some streets in a particular part of the city, and I talked him through where it was, what I was experiencing when it happened, and giving that environment then really sparked his creativity, as in like, oh wow, that makes me feel like this sort of a riff or this sort of a beat because of what you're telling me. He was able to translate the emotion and the story into music. So and then we start to think, as we have done more so with this album, about, okay, this is a challenging subject. Let's write about it, but let's also talk about how do we reframe it in a positive way by the end of the song. Not necessarily solve it, but try and have some sort of pattern. So again, structure. We're not just emoting for 4 minutes. We're going, how can we create a story arc with this emotion?
I quite particularly like that one. We spoke months ago about writing a song in a shuffle rhythm, and that's the one. But I like that one because the chorus is different each time. And I think we spoke about that before, actually, when we were talking about songwriting. So even the song.
So you've written a song based on something you talked about in previous episodes of the cast.
Well, no, I think we just mentioned songwriting styles, and we seem to be mentioning the same song quite often.
That song had already been written at the time. You just weren't teasing it yet. Nice. Yeah,
and also the fact that we wrote it in shuffle, which is that rhythm that goes dun dun gaga dun dun gaga, gave a certain kind of creeping quality to the song that du ga didn't quite have. Yeah. So the very time signature of it was part of the structure of how do we emote this story. Giving structure and concrete real life examples of how to create an atmosphere.
Marilyn Manson does a lot of shuffle beat songs, I think.
Yeah, and it really suits his vibe, doesn't it? Because he's got that sort of kind of creeping, crawling quality, which
he is quite. Whoa. No, I was thinking, when you hear him singing, his voice sounds like it feels the torture in his what he's trying to get across. You get a vibe from him that he feels things really deeply. But do you know what I mean? Like when you hear his music, and I think that's what he's deliberately doing to make people feel that way when they hear what he's singing about.
Beautiful vocals too.
Yeah, not necessarily a good singer, but an amazing vocalist, and that's what I feel
very unique sounding
more than the personality and the authenticity of the voice coming out. And maybe that's an example where emotion is more important than structure, that if he delivers something on the mic that isn't perfect but it's really real, that's much more important than it being a pitch perfect rendering of the melody or whatever. But again, you have to have enough structure for them to even be in the studio in the first place doing it. Whereas if you're just like rolling around on the floor crying and drinking, you probably wouldn't have got to the studio.
I'm sure they'd always do that in the studio as well.
Probably in like contained, right guys, it's crying and drinking hour. We're going to do it for 1 hour. Then we're back into the vocal booth, all right? So I was thinking with this regarding Diamond Black and the fact that our music works through a lot of difficult themes and challenging subjects. Do we therefore rely on these difficult themes and challenging subjects in order for us to have a mission? And if we got to the point where it was like, okay, there's nothing bad to write about anymore, would we not have any songs left?
There will never be anything. Wait, hang on. There'll never be nothing bad to write about so long as human beings exist, because of our nature and what the point is the human condition is ups and downs, and therefore you will never be short of material, whether or not bad things stop happening to you. Obviously,
I guess the subject could just get a bit lighter. It could be like, I've run out of milk again, or something like that. It's just a bit not as soft, but still an emotional moment.
No, because you think of it will change with age, right? So it might be you've run out of milk if you write a song when you're maybe 75.
That'd be much more annoying. It's hard to get in the shops.
Right, but no, But I think as you get older, you get wiser. So the way that you reflect on things that have happened before may not be like a really like visceral in the moment kind of reaction to something. It might be kind of looking at things holistically and kind of understanding where things went wrong and could get better and that kind of thing. So I guess things might get like more positive, like not that I'm positive now, but I mean like it depends what happens to you as well, because like you can't tell what's going to happen to you in the future. So
if it's just if you were looking back on like some moment that happened early in your life, I think the song that you wrote when you're in your 20s compared to the song you write in your like 30s or 40s would be different, even if you're thinking about the same event, because if you just, I don't know if you mellow or whatever, but you see things in a different context.
Depends if you're seeing it with your current eyes, or you're feeling that feeling again from how you felt it. Because Ben, you said about when you were with Yanni and you were telling him about this particular night, you're recalling that as if it has happened like just now, right? Or are you telling him with hindsight?
It was a bit of both. I had to go back inside the song inside the story of what happened in order to go, okay, where are we? What's happening? But it was a controlled experiment of, we're going back inside. Okay, then we're going to come out again and talk about where it is. And then the reconnection with going back inside the song and being very emotional occurred during let's actually sing the song now. Okay, so now we're in the environment where we've got our structure. We can then emote again. We can then be in a position where we're in the studio, we're in a regulated environment, we know what the song's doing. Now you can re-access that emotion. Now you can be more vulnerable and more chaotic. And I guess it's the same when we go on stage and we play the songs. We make sure that we know what we're playing and we're all like in a good position, and we can all actually, the show is good and the technicality is good and there's an audience there. And then once all that structure's in place, we're able to go, right, now let's be a bit more spontaneous and emotional on stage and really get into it because we're in an environment where we've created a safe structure for us to do that. We're not just like in the car park outside just randomly playing. We're not really knowing what we're playing. We've
organised spontaneity.
Organised, but it gives you the environment in which you can then be spontaneous. So I think it's reaccessing that emotion in a sort of safe and structured way is probably the best way of kind of looking at it. And when you said, Nat, about regarding, and you said this as well, Adam, about regarding different events from different parts of different stages in your life, there's always the myth, isn't there, that artists only did good albums for the first 2 or 3 because then they got signed and then they got rich and then they got nothing to write about anymore. But I think you can always, as an artist, you've got a compulsion to create. You'll find something that's happening to you to emote about, even if it's a different thing that when you had the teenage angst. For example, James Dean Bradfield, I haven't heard his solo work, but I imagine that his like latter acoustic solo work is very reflective and introspective. It's not like angst-ridden Generation Terrorist style, I imagine, but it's probably
good example.
Great.
Everclear's a good example, because when they start, there's lots of songs about like, he was like a heroin addict, so a lot of addiction songs, or like being on the street, or horrible family life, and then they come out with Wonderful and they like sells millions of copies and become super millionaires. So he starts writing about what it's like being, a famous person, everyone wants you. And then I think maybe like a few years later he's lost all his money, got addiction again, so it's like gone back to writing about that.
Which one sold the best?
I know. So you've got quite an arc. You never run out of things to write about, even if things are going well.
At least he was authentic, and he just wrote about what's going on in his life. I think that's quite good. And it's like it's. There was a lyric I read one day. I can't remember what it was, when I was a teenager. I think it's in a Shrek movie, but I can't remember. And it was, I want to be a millionaire one day, so I know what it feels like to give it away.
Oh. Probably starts.
What does that mean to you, Nat?
Recklessness, freedom. Like, I don't even care. I don't even need to aspire to achieve to be rich, because who gives a shit anyway? Like, I could still be happy either way.
Right.
To quite freeing.
Yeah. It's like I was walking around. No, you probably think of it as like, oh, well, you're an idiot for giving your money away.
That's what I was thinking.
No, I wouldn't give it to like someone needy.
Like
I'd give it to like,
stuff. I'm like, what an idiot.
friend. No, but what I mean is like I like the idea of accepting that there's no you shouldn't aspire to being rich or famous as your end goal that will, something will fix something in your life now. It's like, that's the end goal. That's where once I get that, I'll be happy. I'll have made it. I'll be fine. Because actually you can be fine. Like I was thinking about this the other day because I was walking around like extremely happy. And I was like, would you be happier if you had lots of money? And I thought, I wouldn't be happier. Things would be easier, but I wouldn't be happier. Because that would negate me being happy now, unless there's a whole other dimension of happy that I've never experienced. But I mean, there'd be more pressure if you were like a multimillionaire. I think people would, expect certain things of you.
Yeah, it's not like just like lay back and stop doing stuff. Just
yeah, you have to have worked some way to get that, and so you've got some sort of status to uphold, and you've got, unless you won the lottery. But most lottery winners don't stay rich.
No,
that's true. Yeah,
and.
Go on, Nat, what are you saying?
No, it's because the reason because if you're not used to having that money, or you've not grown, if you suddenly get it, then maintaining it is probably harder.
Yeah, and there's a concept that the more people have, the more they're worried about losing it, which is why there's this concept that people in less privileged countries are generally happier because they're just living day-to-day lives with food and friends and family, rather than running like a multinational corporation and all the pressure that comes from, are you as good as you were last week? And will you have this much money in 3 months' time with these projections?
Spreadsheets and investors and all that stuff. Like imagine that running through your head.
Like Ben's dream, spreadsheets.
Well, not with investors on your tail and spreadsheets, but fun spreadsheets, right? But not like money and projections.
Exactly. Yeah.
That would ruin spreadsheets for you, wouldn't it?
It would. Yeah. Got to be fun. But yeah. So it's. How do we get onto this?
Don't know. I think we're trying to talk about tortured artists, but we've gone through the whole plethora of.
I said about some lyric about being a millionaire.
That's it.
Because.
Well, I've got an example of during the album writing process where I think there is a confliction between doing something that was extremely emotional and that felt really like this is real, and then perhaps it needing more structure and more grounding in order to be good enough. Which was one of the nights when we were writing stuff. Yanni had gone home, and I suddenly was inspired at like 12 at night to go and write this idea. So I went and I started working on this idea, and I was looking out the window and there was the water and the light, and it felt really emotional and really dramatic. And I thought, this is great. This is so good. And then when I showed it to him the next day, I everything felt a bit flat. It didn't feel as good as it did the night before. And he was like, yeah, it's all right.
So this is boring.
Ooh, yeah, it was full on this is boring territory. And I kind of recognized that, because when I'd been there with the lights and late night and the water outside, and it felt really dramatic, and it felt to me like it had more emotional weight than it really did because of the environment in which I was creating it. Whereas in the cold light of day the next day, I was a bit sheepish, like, oh, this is a bit nothing, isn't it? Whereas other stuff that I worked on in a more grounded and like, okay, let's really think about this kind of a way, and sometimes actually brought a tear to his eye. I'd look around and he'd be crying because it really landed. And so I think that's an example where I possibly got too caught up. I mean, he said there was one good thing about the idea, but I'd gone to bed thinking, this is amazing. Yeah.
That's what you need. That's all you need, because you need to go to bed thinking, I've accomplished something, I'm brilliant. Because then you have a good sleep and you wake up the next day and you're like, yes, I can do it today. And then maybe you look at the thing in the cold light of day and you go, it's a bit naff actually, but I can improve it, ... And then you can use the grounding of waking up accomplished.
Totally, yes. So then you can, yes, exactly. You go from a structured, grounded, regulated place into the emotional zone, go, actually, what can I pull out of this that was good? And there was like one good thing in there.
There you go. And so that actually worked.
So it was useful. It was absolutely useful. And I think when you have those moments of inspiration, you should definitely chase them. It's just, don't be too expectant that they were the most amazing thing ever when you revisit it in a more grounded way, I think.
Do you think so?
Don't get too full of yourself.
Self-editing is the hardest bit about songwriting, I think, or writing in general. Knowing,
you're telling me.
I know when to stop is quite a hard thing as well. Or like, you can get producer blind as well if you listen to the same thing over and over again. Self-editing is really difficult.
Yeah, how to know, because then you're grappling with what matters to me and what matters for the song and what matters to, and it gets a bit confusing of what's actually important that we have in this song, and what lens am I looking at it through it now? How do I define what's important now?
And it's especially if you're writing in a band as well, because then you've got to not be like overly precious. Be like, no, but I want that one bit in because I spent 2 days on that bit. But it's like, it's not working for the song.
yeah, totally. And that's quite a hard discipline to learn. That can take many years. Definitely.
Have you got anything okay, I had a really, I learned how to engineer happiness into my brain this week. And I went to work on Tuesday and I told everyone, and they were like, well, no, partly. But I went and told everyone at work, and I sat down and I was like, how are you? I was like, oh, so good. I was like, what you did this weekend? I said, I learned how to engineer happiness. And they're like, you're going to tell us then? I was like, yeah, I'll tell you in a minute. So I went downstairs, made myself a coffee, came back upstairs, sat down. They're like, so tell us. I was like, right. So what I did is I get up in the morning. I have like 2 really cold glasses of fresh water, right? Then I have a glass of milk, and the milk and the fats from the milk kind of start working on my body. And then I have a caffeine, coffee or a Red Bull, right? A caffeine, I said. And my colleagues went, so you just have a coffee? Milk, water, caffeine, that's coffee, right? And I was like, no, but it's the order.
Yeah.
But the thing is what happens to my brain is different for everyone. What happens to my brain, I have 6 hours sleep, 6 hours, everyone needs a different amount of sleep. 6 hours sleep, drown my brain in water, and then go into the other things steadily, right? By 11 o'clock, second caffeine. Now, the reason this works is because it allows me to get to maximum focus. And also you have to have like noise cancelling headphones and like, you know, really like music, right? That creates me to, I can have like 2-3 hours of like 100% concentration, and it's insane how much I can concentrate on it, like, and actually get stuff done and get through things, even if they're boring or like, you know, not that exciting. So get admin tasks done, but also if they're exciting, then I can get some, you know, I can start putting together all these patterns and stuff that I've been noticing or thinking. It sort of helps me sort everything out and create something coherent. And I know it's different for everyone. It's going to be different for everyone, but the happiness then comes from the accomplishment feeling after that. And then because I'm accomplished, the next thing I will do will be better, and so on. So if I engineer it with some liquids in the morning and some sleep patterns, then the next thing I do will be more accomplished because I feel accomplished from the day before. So with a combination of music, caffeine, water, milk, and sleep, those 5 things, I have actually figured out how to make myself constantly happy and recognise it.
Yeah, we said about that before when we were talking about writing techniques, like, and learning music. Recognising your accomplishments is super important.
Well, that feeling of accomplishment, it doesn't have to be, you don't have to have accomplished something that's necessarily groundbreaking. You just have to feel like I did that, and I'm glad I did that, and I actually got that thing done that was in my head for a while, or I wanted to do it, or I've done something that for someone else, like, you know, for a client or for work or whatever, that they liked, and that made them, you know, that did what I was asked to do, kind of thing. So yeah,
we both thrive from like ticking off things on our list of things to do, don't we?
Well, that sounds like you figured out the sequencing of how to, of what to drink and how to drink, and how that then gave you the positivity that you needed, rather than just presumably most people just go straight for the coffee.
Yes, you know, that's something they say not to do because it's a diuretic. You have to be hydrated before you have the diuretic.
Right.
Otherwise you get dehydrated, then you get headaches, and like people report things like the jitters and stuff. It's just dehydration. It's like basically like you're giving yourself a hangover without even drinking.
Interesting.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah, just seriously, 2 pints of water, and then when you wake up, because also you lose a whole bunch. So I went on ChatGPT and I was like, why do I really like cold water fresh from the tap? Like, what is it about the cold water fresh from the tap that I like? And I have to let it run for a while, and there's this bite, you know, if you guys feel this, and then it's just like really good. And apparently it's because the water comes up from the ground, it's aerated, it says, with like bubbles in it that you don't get if it's just been sitting in the pipes. So it's come up from the ground, and then you drink that, and then it goes to your brain, and your brain recognises that as cold, as fresh, because it's running, it's come from the ground. And so you feel more refreshed from drinking.
Also, we tried this out with my mum, who doesn't live in London. And we then don't get the same thing. And then we looked online and we found out that we got a different source of water in London. to
yes.
them. So that's why
Actually, both our mums drink bottled water because they're from places with, was it high clay or something? And in central London, actually, the water is from 2 river sources, which means it's constantly moving. So it's actually different. It's got different makeup to like water that is from reservoirs, clay reservoirs. I bet you didn't know that.
Well, you wouldn't have thought, would you, that central London water was of such high quality, would you? But that's great to hear.
It has to be processed a lot because it comes from the Thames and the Lee Valley River. Yeah. But what about in Liverpool, Ben? Do you like the water in the tap?
What an interesting question that I've never contemplated before. I've got a water filter in the kitchen that I use, like one of those jug things that you put the water in. But that's just for habit. I haven't specifically chosen that because of where I live. Interesting. Let's do some research into the
diamond cast homework. Everyone's
water quality.
Going over 2 pints of water.
Let the tap run. Don't just take it out of the tap. Let it run. Put your finger on it until not just it gets cold, till you feel there's a certain bite. I call it a bite. It's when it feels different. It holds your finger under the tap until it feels different, and when it feels different, drink it.
Okay.
Good advice. Oh, yeah. Good advice.
So, tortured artists, right?
No, because what happens is you are then more if you really pay attention to yourself, and this goes back to everything we've always talked about, knowing yourself.
That's true.
You really pay attention to yourself and your body and what you need and how you can not hack it, but like give it what it needs when it needs it, right? Then you actually have a better time. Your mood is better, right? But it's not like the World Health Organization says we have to have 7 to 9 hours sleep a night. No, you have as many hours sleep a night. That's average, the average amount of people, right? You should have as many hours sleep a night as you find is appropriate. Try not to wake up with an alarm and things like that. And I find it's usually 6 for me. And I'm like, something wrong with me? Like, am I not getting enough sleep? It's like, no, you're getting the perfect amount of sleep for you. But if you do that constantly, I find you end up with you know yourself a lot better, and then you can react to things a lot better. So if it's then recognizing when you were in a tortured state or when something bad happened to you, how you felt, you're much more grounded and able to pick out what those emotions were objectively, so that you can use it in your work.
Yeah, nice. So I think to summarize, I think what we talked about today is that my perspection. That's perspective and perception. Perspection.
What's the one earlier?
It was mundanity.
Mundanity is a real word.
Oh, mundaneness. That was the one I made up. And my perspection, which is perception and perspective in one word.
Nice.
My perspection on it is that you start with the spark and the emotion, and that's really important for the truth and the authenticity of the material. Then you need to have the discipline and the structure to actually create scaffolding around it, to then access it safely, to access it consistently, like being in the studio, like being on stage, but with your creative world built around you. So then you can go back into that emotion and access it in a sort of controlled and safe manner. That's my thought on it.
Very good. I noticed we're running out of our time today.
Yes.
Should we do a switcheroo over to our Patreon?
Yes, let's do that now.
Alrighty. Let's go. Thanks everyone for joining us. Tell us what you think. What have you found out about your way of hacking your brain and your mind and your body so that you can achieve peak performance and peak recognition of what's good for you? Write me in the comments.
Yeah, cool. We'll see you on Patreon in 5 minutes.